took like a $20,000 loan, right, from her friend to tide us over this period.
Wow.
I mean, she could have liquidated some of her assets or whatever, but just to tide us through that period with some liquidity, she had to borrow money. No choice.
Welcome to episode 2 of our Modern Wealth podcast, right? Where we aim to empower, enrich, and evolve people's financial lives by inviting absolutely amazing friends and guests of mine who will share with you all the practical strategies on how to improve your wealth, right? So today, I have a very, very, very close friend of mine. We've known each other for
16 years?
16 years, right? 16 years, a long time, since secondary school days, right? A friend of mine, his story is amazing. He's one of the top financial advisors in the land, right? And he achieved an exponential growth, right? And he's going to be sharing his story, some tips with regards to how he literally went from broke to being a 1%, the top 1% in his entire industry, right? And that person is now Eddy, right here, right? So Eddy, can you just introduce yourself, just share a little bit about who you are and what you do for a living?
Very kind words, Rash. Thank you. So I'm a retirement specialist.
Okay.
I help people to plan for an early retirement, a comfortable retirement. And I also lead a team of about 10 advisors that is specialized in retirement planning and legacy planning. So I represent IPP Financial Advisors.
Okay, fantastic. Dude, but let's bring it back a bit, right? Let's bring it back a bit, okay? So this was not your line. This was something that you never thought of doing, wearing a coat and tie. In fact, most of the time you were bare-bodied and you were naked on your not that, but you were mostly bare-bodied on Instagram and stuff, right? So what did you used to do, and what gave you that switch and everything?
Well, bare body is not the right word. Let me correct him. Right, it's a different outfit for the stage, right? So I used to be a performing artist in Las Vegas for about 2 to 3 years professionally. So I was working in various variety shows and acrobatic shows. Think of it like circus shows, kind of like Cirque du Soleil style shows where people are flying around in the air. So the discipline that I actually did was called aerial acrobatics.
Wow.
So I was one of the aerial artists in the show.
Wow. So he was a professional acrobat, guys. Like, his videos just wowed me. It was crazy. But talk about this period of your life, bro. Like, share with them about, what caused the transition. Your dreams was to travel the world to perform. And then what happened and what caused the transition?
Right. So, during college in the US, I chanced upon acrobatics, right, recreationally. And then I met some professionals who were doing it at the highest level, like America's Got Talent level. They were traveling the world, performing the act with their friends and their partners. So I thought, wow, what an incredible way to live, right? So it kind of got me really look at my life. And when I graduated from college, by the way, I studied finance, so it was a very complete 180 from what I was pursuing back then. So I packed my bags, I moved to Vegas. I remember my parents, my mom and dad, like driving me there. And so I was in Salt Lake City. We drove to Vegas, which was about 6 hours away. And I said to myself, now is the best time, right, to take a chance and see how far I can go with this. Can I become a professional acrobat and make a living, traveling the world, pushing my physical and mental limits and creating an act that is so, beautiful and beyond my own imagination and beyond every the human minds, right? So back then I kind of like moved away from the pursuit of material wealth, and I thought if I could just do what I love, I'll be really happy, even if I was only making maybe 4,000 a month or whatever the amount was, just enough to survive and just be truly happy because I spent my time doing what I'm passionate about, right? So I took that leap of faith. I risked everything basically and moved to Vegas. I did that for about 2 years plus, and it was really tough in the beginning because it's a very competitive market, right? There's a lot of artists from around the world, from China, from Russia, from Ukraine, from America, France. I had a chance to learn from them, but it also meant that there were so few roles for acrobats around the world, especially in the the big roles, right, or in that specific discipline that I was trained in, which is to be an aerialist. And usually the aerialist is like the pony of the show, like the show pony, right? So there are only very few roles for aerialists, but there are like hundreds of, former Olympians or former national gymnasts who have worked all their life, 10, 20 years of their life, right, to fight for this opportunity. Right? So my coach, for example, was a national gymnast representing Ukraine many years ago. And then when he retired, he became an aerial acrobat, right? And he's traveled the world and performed for like the last probably 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, you were among the best, dude. Literally, and you barely had what, 1-2 years of experience, like around.
Well, I had a late start, right? So by the time I moved to Vegas, I probably have practiced for about 4 years already, right? Because throughout my college, I was practicing, right? 3 years, yeah.
So before Vegas, it was 4 years of practice, 3-4 years.
Yeah.
But you're talking about these guys who practiced since they were kids.
Yeah, so it started probably like, in
5 years old or something, right?
Yeah.
The diapers, they probably started, right? Shit.
So I had a late start. I started around age 22, 23, which is a really late start to learn acrobatics, right? But thankfully, the learning curve was very steep, but I was able to pick up, things along the way. I always had an athletic background, right? So it's not completely foreign to me. But even if you're a strong, gym rat, it doesn't mean that you can do.
It's a different set of muscles, man, dude.
Yeah. So
muscles
body
you never
awareness,
worked before, your neck and.
Yeah, I have a pretty strong neck, as you know. Yeah. So it forces you to use your body in different ways, in a very holistic, coordinated way, in an artistic way, right? So the foundation that I had in athletics, being a rugby player, running, cycling, and swimming, all those helped a little bit. But there was so much more that I had to, other attributes that I had to develop. Yeah. So flexibility, balance, agility, mobility, coordination, counting music. So these were all very new to me. But I would say in the first 1 year in Vegas, it was a huge struggle because I was still building my act, right? So basically your act is like your 4-minute show on stage. But to create this 4-minute piece, you got to work a lot. Like, basically it takes a long time to build a solid act, right? So my first year, I was just basically building the act. And it was only in my second year that I started getting a breakthrough, right? I started getting booked for events and for shows and even for traveling corporate gigs, right? So the first year, basically, I was just getting by. I was doing whatever odd job that I could find, right? From being a club promoter to becoming an online casino dealer, like dealing cards, right? To working at the a corporate office in the audit department for which I didn't last for very long. I was let go after 2 weeks.
Yes.
And then, even working in nightclubs, right? So I did whatever I had to do to survive, to fund my lifestyle, just so that I could, keep going and pursue my passion of being a professional aerialist.
So I never asked you this question before, but fast forward today, right? Like we haven't gone through the story, but fast forward today, you are one of the top financial advisors in the land, right? What were some lessons that or takeaways that you got from that life in Vegas that is very directly applicable to what you're doing today?
Right, great question. So I think, in whatever pursuit that we do, if you have the personality traits that help you to pursue excellence in that trait, whether it's acrobatics or canoeing or, let's just say marathon running or whatever it is, the same traits can be channeled to another domain or another pursuit. And those same traits will also take you to a level of excellence if it is channeled in the right way with the right guidance.
What are the traits that were applicable for you?
Okay. So definitely discipline is one of the top one.
Discipline.
Right? Consistency, kind of interlinked to it.
Day in, day out.
Day in, day out. It doesn't matter whether you're seeing results or not, right? You keep putting in the grind. You put in the effort, right? And if you look at yourself a month ago, right, 3 months ago, you will see some significant difference. But within a few days, you might not see much difference, right? But whether you're feeling shit or feeling good, you still got to turn up to your practice. You got to put in your hours, right? Whether it's 4 hours a day or 6 hours a day, whatever it is, right? And you just aim to do a little bit better than the day before. So that's what I call being 1% better every day, right? And when you compound that over a period of, let's say, a year, the transformation is vast. because I will always review my videos from, back then as a performer, my videos from the previous show or the previous year, and I could see massive improvement with every new challenge, every new show that I did, with time passing. Yeah.
What else? Anything else? Getting better every single day, discipline.
Well, so I guess the showmanship element that I, developed does help me in my role as a salesman now in some ways, because you selling a service or a product or during an appointment, right, is basically putting on a show.
Yep.
Right, you've got the introduction, you've got the middle, and the
close.
conclusion or the call to action, right? So back then I had to promote my own, my work as well through digital marketing, through video reels. You got to capture someone's attention in 30 seconds or in 5 seconds, right? So I learned some of the things from there of being a showman, which I then applied towards my current role as an advisor, because ultimately an advisor is a sales role, a client-facing role where I'm, telling them a story. Yeah, it's really telling a story, right? So my job now is to tell the right stories to the right people as many times as possible, right? So if I tell the right retirement story or the legacy story to a high net worth individual who is in their 50s or 60s, right? That is where we're very good at. But if I told the same story to a 30-year-old, it won't make sense to them, right? So being able to tell a compelling story in a way that is easy to digest and that's impactful, I think those are some of the traits that I probably picked up from my performing days.
The movie that's coming to my mind, brother, is The Greatest Showman.
All right.
Dude, one of my favorite movies, bro. Dude, that inspired the shit out of me. I love it so much. I think it ranked probably one of the top 5 movies, right? Talk about the circus, The Greatest Showman. Dude, made me so emotional as well, that movie. I love it, man.
I'm curious to hear about your second or third, if that's one of your top 5.
Wolf of Wall Street,
Okay.
right? There's another one.
Review on that.
Titanic.
Right,
Completely
I'll give
off.
that to you.
Right, but Greatest Showman was amazing. Sorry, but really, right? Like if you watched that movie before, so many traits with regards to putting on a show, doing whatever it takes. Where nobody showed up, you still show up, and you put in that work day after day, and then you create the greatest damn show in the world, right? Like, oh man, dude, I'm getting chills, man. Anyways,
Actually, I cried. I remember seeing that show the first time with about 8 of my circus acrobatic friends.
Exactly.
I did in the theaters, and I was literally crying. And it's so rare for me to cry, right? I don't know, for the past 10 years, I may have cried 3 times.
Yeah.
Right? So this was one of the times that I actually teared. And
I can imagine, bro.
I saw so much
Of you.
of myself
Yes.
in the, I forget the lead actor's name, but
Hugh Jackman.
yeah, Hugh Jackman, yes.
Yes.
So there was so much resilience and conviction and perseverance that he displayed, to bring the show to life, because he went through many challenges, right? So yeah, I agree with you. One of my favorite shows.
Dude, one of my favorite shows ever. I actually, very rarely do I do like a video, like a movie outing kind of thing, right? So I too brought a whole bunch of my friends to come and watch the show together. It's
Really?
actually, with a whole bunch of some of my friends' kids. So I brought them to my house to actually watch The Great Showman.
Ocho?
You were not in Singapore, bro. Right, but beautiful movie. I love it so much. Okay, bro. So let's fast forward a bit, right? You were in this position where you had barely $1,000 in your bank account. Right?
I hit that point, yes.
This was that lowest point where you came back from the US. You didn't know what to do. You were, blank. You look at your bank account. You didn't have a place to stay.
Actually, I think I had about $3,000.
Okay, a couple of $1,000s, right? But you didn't have a place to stay, right? You hardly had anyone around to support you and everything, and you made a decision, right? And tell us about that change and what was it like to be at that bottom, of your story.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up, right? Because I think how you handle difficulties actually define who you are, right? So back in 2019, right, just before COVID hit Singapore, so I was forced to come back without notice, and I landed in Changi. I didn't have a place to go because my entire family was out of the country, right? My brother was in Canada and my mom was in Myanmar. So as you know, I know my family back then, they were living in Myanmar. So I had to call up some friends and say, hey, can I crash at your place, And that was one of the most humbling moments in my life because I was prepared to sleep at Changi Airport for a night if I didn't get an offer in time. And that's also one of the most broke points in my life. But 6 months later, when circuit breaker happened, that's when the real, you think that you already hit the rock bottom, right? But actually got lower. So I flew to Canada, right, with the little money that I had and some support from my family, and I went there for another 3 to 4 months of training, right, to seek coaching from some of the best acrobatic coaches in the world because Cirque du Soleil headquarters is there, right? So I stayed there in the blistering cold winter for about 3 to 4 months, and because COVID reached Canada, right, I was forced to come back. This time, voluntarily, I came back, right? But it was the last flight leaving Montreal to Singapore. And when I arrived in Singapore, this time my brother was around, so I could stay at his house. But I literally had less than $1,000, right? And I was so lost. Like I just felt like the whole, floor underneath has been taken away because there was no more jobs in the entertainment industry. All the shows were closed, right? And I have not done any other job for at least 2.5 years. Right? I haven't done a corporate job or some kind of regular job, right? So I didn't have any experience. I was very rusty, let's say, right? And so disconnected. And coming back to Singapore, all of a sudden, I didn't have the social network that I could leverage on, right? And being circuit breaker, everybody was very isolated as well. So that was one of the toughest moments for me, right? And I stayed in my brother's spare room. He had an extra bedroom in the HDB, right? So I stayed there for like a good 2 to 3 months. And I just, kind of really, I think I got depressed probably, right? It was a very depressive episode. So I didn't exercise for like a month almost because I was like, what's the point? Right? What's the point of being in such good shape if I couldn't, be an acrobat, right? It was, I was just in such a dark space, right? So that was kind of the end of one chapter, but the beginning of another exciting one, right? So I took that time to go and pass my exam papers, right? To get my license, to be licensed by MAS to become a licensed financial advisor, right? So I took that 2 months, passed all my exams, and I started my new chapter in July of 2020. So that was about 3 years ago. Yeah.
Crazy, man. Dude, so, okay, decided to take that step. Why not try something new, right? Just maybe a short one, bro. For somebody who's out there pursuing their passion, their dream, right? Their life's goal, Cirque du Soleil performer, I want to be the best of the best, right? But to come to terms to say, you know what, I think I need to close this chapter. How's it like, and how do you make the decision, man?
Oh, this one is a really tough one. So it took me about 6 months to finally come to terms with the reality of my life, right? I was in denial for a good 3 to 6 months, right? Because I was not ready to give it up yet. I thought maybe if I just push a little bit more, if I, did another audition or, another door opened, my life could, break through again, right? Because I actually represented Singapore at the International Circus Festival, which is one of the, well, it was the first time a Singaporean was represented, at this festival in Vietnam, and is in this region is a rather, prestigious opportunity. So I thought, I just needed to push a little bit more, right? But I realized that reality was not quite matching up with my, plans. And I had a mentor. I had a life coach back then, right? His name is Sean, who would constantly check in with me, right, virtually on, Zoom or on WhatsApp to see how I was doing. And then he pointed out to me that, hey, Eddy, look, it's all good what you're doing. You're passionate and doing something you love, but put yourself in the shoes of the 40-year-old Eddy, right? How would 40-year-old Eddy look at you and perhaps, some of the things that I was doing back then was not going to make the 40-year-old Eddy happy because I wasn't really setting myself up for, a future, a future of freedom and security and abundance. I was thinking more short-term, like short-term gratification. I just wanted to be happy in the moment, right? So I didn't have this freedom fund back then, right? So the freedom fund is basically a nest egg or a portfolio that will give you monthly dividends to sustain your lifestyle so that you're financially free, which means you're no longer dependent on your employment or your job to pay for your lifestyle. So back then I didn't have this. So my so-called freedom was limited and it had an expiry date. So I came to realize this, right? But what if I have, let's say, $1 million, right? That will pay me 6% a year, conservatively, right? So that's 60,000 a year of passive income, 5,000 a month. If I had 5,000 a month, it was more than enough to cover my lifestyle back then, right? I just lived very simply. So it became my mission, my life mission, to build my own personal freedom fund.
Okay.
Right? Because once I reach that goal, right, then I can really just do whatever I want because I'm no longer dependent on the work that I do, active employment to sustain myself and my family, right? So that became my next mission, which then, brought me to make that a mission to help 100 families every year or 100 individuals every year in Singapore to do likewise. Because since I've picked up all the knowledge and the skills to build my own journey, why don't I just, share that and replicate that for people that I get to work with, people that I care about.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this next part, which is very, very important, right? So you went from barely having anything, zero experience in industry, right? July 2020, and in less than a year, you hit, TOT, right? So for those of you who don't know, TOT is one of the highest ranks, accolades you can actually achieve in the financial industry, right? Like 1 year, people tell me it's impossible, it cannot be done. Like first year, just aim for MDRT, very good, let me clap for you, right? But you hit TOT, how, man?
So for the sake of some of our audience who may not be very familiar with the terms, let me just put it into context. So MDRT is basically an advisor who takes home about 100K a year, right? So basically the benchmark is 80K. If you take in more than 80K of commission a year, you're considered MDRT.
Okay.
Right now there's a second tier, which is core of the table, or COT for short. It's somebody who takes home about 240K a year, right? Then you're considered a COT qualifier. Now the third and highest tier is the top of the table, right? So if you take home at least about 430K a year, then you are considered top 1% in the industry globally, and they call you TOT, right? So these are just terms that we throw around to give ourselves some, benchmark lah. Yeah. So to give a bit more accurate picture, my first 6 months was a struggle. My first 6 months as a financial advisor. In fact, my average net income in the first 6 months was less than 1,000 a month.
Wow.
Right? It was hell. I was this close to quitting and joining a bank, right? One of the local banks, and the bank offered me, right? So I was this close. So how it works is in our industry, right? You've got the financing, your allowance scheme or your financing scheme, right? That pays you a monthly salary of your choice. You can choose whatever tier you want. Do you want 2,000 a month? 4,000 a month, right? And with every tier, there is expectation from you that you have to hit a sales target. So if you hit a sales target, it will unlock your allowance for the month, right? And so on, right? And it's kind of accumulative. But if you don't hit the sales target, right, this allowance is not unlocked, and you don't get it, right? So in my first FA, right, independent financial advisor platform, I was on such a scheme. So I chose to be on 1,500 a month, right? And if I close cases and bring in business, I get commission on the business, and I also unlock the 1,500. Okay. So in the 6 months, right, my average net income was less than 1,000 a month. Can you believe it?
Wow.
It was worse than my artist days. At least as an artist, I was averaging about 3 to 4K a month.
Exactly.
And now I was making less. I was like, I came into sales to, make the big bucks and change my life. And now I'm like struggling. I can barely eat at hawker center. And the auntie and uncle, the cleaners at the hawker center for us, they had a higher net income than me, right? So I was like, wow, something has to change. So what was my point? It was a massive struggle. It was not smooth sailing at all.
Sure.
And I think any sane person
Would have quit.
would have quit by then,
sure.
right? But I don't know. For me, I just realized I needed to change my environment.
Okay.
My business model was not working,
Okay.
right? And the business model of the first agency did not fit me.
Okay.
And perhaps I didn't have the right guidance or the mentor that could, bring out the best version of me,
Okay.
right? So it was a very difficult decision for me to make, but I took the leap of faith to leave the FA and join another FA.
Okay.
And this time with no base salary,
Wow.
right? Which means I declined the bank's offer. By the way, the bank offered me $3,000 a month and another $300 in allowance. So it's like $3,300, right? And if you really overperform, they'll give you some commission.
Wow.
So net, you will make about 4 to 5K a month in the neighborhood branch at Tiong Bahru.
Wow.
Because back then I was living in Tiong Bahru, right? So you got to be in the office, in the bank, 5.5 days a week, 9 to 6, and you got to hustle like a corporate slave basically,
Sure.
and you only make 4 to 5K a month. So I say no. I took the leap of faith. No basic salary, no problem. I told my mom, please give me another 6 months, right? And I will figure out. I'll make this work. I believe it was possible, right? Because I met a mentor and a platform that I believed in, which had a massive concentration of top producers, right? Which is actually located in this very building of your office. Yeah, so I met my mentor who changed my life, and his name is Ivan. So with his guidance, I was able to make a massive breakthrough, right? So in the first 12 months, under his guidance, in the second FA firm, I hit my first TOT.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's just a change of environment. Bro, going back to the story, bro, what made you say, to take that risk after risk after risk, right? Like, is that something embedded in you, like since your Acrobat days? Like, to say no to something that was a stable paycheck and to take another risk and go now this time with no salary as well. Like, shit, man, dude. You're not young at that point of time already, right? Not exactly.
I was 29.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, like,
28,
tell us about that, bro. Is that something that's embedded in you? What's your beliefs about taking risk? An amazing, crazy story from Eddy on how he literally went from nothing to being the top 1%. If you've liked this video so far, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Comment down below. Let us know what you would love to hear more about from Eddy or from any of our other guests as well. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. So tell me, man, so what made you keep taking that risk again and again, even though there was a stable option available?
All right. Well, I think it was a little bit easier for me because I had nothing left to lose. Right? I didn't have a family to support, so I didn't have any liabilities or responsibilities, which was a conscious choice, by the way, right? I didn't want to start a family early. Number two, I didn't have any loans or scholarships to pay off, right? Because thankfully I had a scholarship to get me through college from the college itself, right? That was a foundation that donated to the school. So when I graduated, I was debt-free. And I think that's one of the most important defining, factors of my post-college experience because I was debt-free. A lot of American students, for example, and perhaps some Singaporean students, they may have student loans and debts to service right after college.
Yep.
There's an immediate pressure for them to make financial returns, right, to start paying their monthly installment. So I didn't have that, right? And my lifestyle was very simple, right? I kept it simple. It was a conscious choice again, right? I would do meal preps. I would wear very basic clothing and keep wearing I will wear plain stuff so it's easy to match. So I kept my lifestyle very simple to make sure that my so-called burn rate or I was very low maintenance, right? So that I could be free to pursue whatever I wanted to pursue. So I guess, those three things helped. But I think it's also a characteristic or, a personality trait that I've developed over the years because I knew that whatever I set my mind to, I will find a way to make it work.
Fantastic.
It will work out, right? It may not be in your own timing, right? But it will eventually work out if you, just figure out how. So I was willing to do that with acrobatics when I took the leap of faith and moved to Vegas, with very little in my pockets. And in fact, if I go back to my childhood, right, when my family packed our bags from Myanmar and moved to Singapore and started from like all over, from zero again, and started for me to even learn English, right? English was my second language.
Exactly, man. Crazy.
Right? And being able to do well enough to go to a decent school, right? I guess that was also another defining experience for me is how do I, figure everything out, start all over again, right? So even if I'm broke and if I'm thrown to another country or if I move to another city, how can I use my resources and the skills that I have to rebuild my life?
Fantastic. One thing that I feel very passionate about, bro, was what you mentioned with regards to taking the necessary risk, especially when you're young and when you have no liabilities, right? Like this wouldn't be something maybe a working mother could afford to do.
Absolutely not.
Right? Yeah. But the importance, if you're watching this, you're young, right? Like, are you taking the necessary risk to achieve that dream life that you want? I think that's so important. The time is ticking, right? And you got to do it. Like you told yourself, you told your mom, 6 months, mom, I got to make it work. Right, there was that time ticking as well for you to make it work, which was fantastic, and
Dude,
I believe all of that.
She took like a $20,000 loan, right, from her friend to tide us over this period.
Wow.
I mean, she could have liquidated some of her assets or whatever, but just to tide us through that period with some liquidity, she had to borrow money.
Wow.
To pay for my iPad, to pay for my white shirt, and for my monthly, lifestyle needs.
Wow,
Yeah.
Crazy, man. And
there
today,
was no choice.
yeah, and exactly, and right now, you've retired your mom and everything as well, which is fantastic, right? So, I'm so happy for you, bro. So, one final question to wrap it up. For any person who's like, Rash, Eddy, I feel so inspired. I want to be like that, right? I want to achieve a career breakthrough. I've been stuck at this plateau. I really want a career breakthrough. I want a financial breakthrough. What are some actionable things that they have to do, in your opinion? Give me 3 things that, actionables.
Well, this is what works for me, right?
Sure.
It may not work for everybody, but I would say learn about sales, number
Okay.
one.
Okay.
Because sales is an incredible career where there is, unlimited earning power.
Absolutely.
Right? You can break through in 6 months or in a year, right? It's not about how many years you've been in the industry. It's about the results that you produce, right? Your KPI is very clearly defined. So if you put me against another advisor who's been in the industry for 20 years, right? I am on equal footing with this guy, as long as I can deliver the results. So it is the greatest equalizer, especially if you come from, not a privileged background. So number one, learn sales. Number two, find a mentor, right? Mentors, they're abundant, they're out there, right? You just got to find the right one for yourself. And it's because they can shortcut your learning curve, right? They have done what you want to do multiple times. And so if you seek them out and follow their strategy and the journey that they have taken, it will drastically reduce the amount of time required for you to replicate the same results, right? And of course, you got to show sincerity to be a deserving mentee,
Of course.
right? And show the eagerness to learn and the ambition or the hunger, right? And I would say third is the 1% better every day. So as I was telling you, I just remember the pen that I use for every single case that is signed has the words engraved on it.
Wow, 1%
1% better every day.
Wow.
Right? So for short, it's just 1% better. So I think that constant personal development is key. And that could be in communications, it could be in how you dress, or how you present, health. You're a great role model of that. You being in shape and taking part in bodybuilding shows, even when you don't have to, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's just like something that you do to become the greatest version of yourself, right? Or whether it's in your religion, your faith, or social relationships, everything. We just focus on getting a little bit better and improving that incremental gain, right? Which, when you compound it, is massive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So learn sales, find a mentor, get 1% better every day.
Fantastic. Brilliant, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. So tell me, Eddy, so we talked about, you talked about that freedom fund that did you have it, right? And at that one point of time, you didn't have it, right? So what exactly is the freedom fund and how can people start to grow it?
I'm glad you asked, Resh. So, it's actually a lot more realistic than we think. And if you have a strategy, a system, it's very, very realistic to achieve in 10 or 20 years, or even 5 years, right? For some. So the idea is very simple. Why did I mention $1 million earlier? It's because based on my lifestyle, let's say I want 5,000 a month, which means I need 60,000 a year, right? And if you look at most of the income generating instruments in the market, in the financial markets, 6 to 8% is the realistic target, right? So using 6% as a benchmark, I need $1 million portfolio, right? So first you got to figure out what is your freedom fund number, the dollar amount. So for me, it's $1 million, 60K a year of income, 5,000 a month of monthly passive income, right? So let's say $1 million is our benchmark in this example. For somebody else, it may be 3 million. Someone else, it may be $500,000, right? So let's use $1 million for example, right? And say you have you're 30 right now, right? And you want to retire by 50 or 55. That's a good 20 to 25 years runway for you to build up this freedom fund,
Sure.
right? So this is something on top of having paid off your house and other assets, right? So say you earn 10K a month, right? Are you able to set aside 20% of it or maybe 30% of it for your future? You should,
Yep.
right? Because one day we may stop earning if we are, retired or if we stop working, right? Or if we become obsolete.
Yep.
So it's a very, reasonable and sustainable amount to set aside, let's say 20 to 30% of your current income, right? To build up this nest egg for your future, which will free you from, the corporate world or whatever job that you do. So the idea is very simple. Let's say if you just keep the money in the bank, right, and the saving rate only give you about 1%. The interest is 1%, right? It will take you 72 years to double your money, which is a freaking long time. It's like almost our lifetime,
Absolutely.
right? But if your savings can grow at, let's just say 8%, okay, then 8 times 9 is 72. So every 9 years, your money will double. Right? So that's a rule of 72. It's an easy way to calculate how long it takes to double your money. Right? So now let's just say, if I can generate 10% for you, that means in about 7 year plus, your money will double. You get the idea, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if my goal is to generate $1 million, right, down the road, let's say in 20 years, if I only grow my money at 2 to 3% in the fixed deposit or in some insurance saving plans, it will take me about 5K a month to reach my goal. Okay, these are just estimated numbers. 5K a month. It may not be realistic for the average Singaporean, especially somebody in their 30s who are still in their mid-career,
Of course.
right? But let's say if you can sustainably generate about 10%, right? Then you only need to set aside about 2K a month, which becomes a lot more realistic and accessible.
Absolutely.
And sustainable, right?
Yep.
I mean, 2K is, it's a sizable amount still, but it's a lot more affordable for the average person. So basically, if you compound 2,000 a month, right, for 20 years at a compound rate of 10%, you will reach $1 million. Right?
Beautiful.
So that's what we specialize in doing. So if you're interested to learn more about some of the wealth accumulation strategies, I'll be happy to have a chat.
Thank you so much, Eddy, for coming down today, for sharing so many valuable insights with our audience. I really, truly appreciate it, bro. Right, dude, can you just share with them, how can they look out for you? Like, how can they find you on social media or whatever not?
On Instagram, Facebook, if you just look up Acro Asian, I do acrobatics and I'm clearly Asian. So if you just look up Acro Asian, you'll find me on most channels.
Fantastic.
Drop me a hello, and start a conversation. I'm pretty, happy to chat.
Acro Asian on Facebook, Instagram, go and check him out. Right, do follow him. And most importantly, I think my biggest takeaway was creating that freedom fund. Right, as in starting that freedom fund as soon as today is super important. And if you want to know exactly how to, there is nobody in the world I recommend better than Eddy. Right, so make sure you guys go and follow him. Thank you so much for watching this episode, guys. I hope you guys found extremely valuable content and insights from this interview. Right, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Till our next episode. Bye, guys.